The Tale of Mrs. Koi Koi. Once upon a time, in a small village in Nigeria, there stood an old school known for its crumbling walls and creaky floors. The school had a dark history that sent shivers down the spine of every child who dared to attend. It was said that the spirit of Mrs. Koi Koi roamed its halls, a former teacher who had mysteriously vanished one stormy night. Mrs. Koi Koi was once a beloved teacher, known for her passion and dedication. However, whispers of her strictness lingered in the air, often mingling with rumors of her tragic fate. On the night of her disappearance, a fierce storm swept through the village. Lightning illuminated the school, and the winds howled like the voices of the lost. Students claimed they saw her shadow, her face pale and eyes wide with fear, rushing through the corridors. Years passed, but the stories remained. Children spoke of her ghostly figure, said to wander the school at night, her presence marked by the eerie sound of clicking heels echoing down the hall. Those who encountered her reported feeling a chill creep over them, as if the very air had turned cold. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a group of brave students decided to test their courage. They dared each other to stay in the school after hours, convinced they could catch a glimpse of Mrs. Koi Koi. Armed with only their flashlights, they crept through the darkened halls, laughter masking their fear. As the minutes ticked by, the laughter faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. Suddenly, the air grew heavy, and the faint sound of clicking heels echoed through the corridors. The students froze, their hearts pounding in their chest. With trembling hands, they turned their flashlights toward the sound. There she stood at the end of the hallway, a figure draped in a tattered dress, her hair wild and unkempt. Her eyes glimmered like shattered glass, reflecting a deep sadness and an anger that seemed to resonate with the walls around her. The students felt a wave of terror wash over them, and one by one, they turned to flee. But before they could escape, Mrs. Koi Koi raised her hand, and the air crackled with an unearthly energy. "You think you can run from me," she whispered, her voice echoing with sorrow. "I am bound to this place, forever searching for the truth of my demise." The bravest among them, a girl named Aisha, hesitated. "Mrs. Koi Koi, what happened to you?" she called out, her voice trembling. With a heavy sigh, the spirit began to speak. "I was wronged by those I trusted. They spread lies about me, tarnishing my name until I was forced to leave this world, leaving nothing but sorrow behind. I am trapped here, a shadow of the teacher I once was." The students listened, captivated yet horrified. Mrs. Koi Koi continued, her story weaving a tapestry of betrayal and heartbreak. She spoke of her passion for teaching, her love for her students, and the betrayal that led to her untimely end. As the clock struck midnight, her voice grew softer, tinged with despair. "I only seek justice. If my story can't be told, then I shall wander these halls forever, a ghost among the living." Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a gust of wind blew through the corridor. The students felt a profound sadness envelop them. They realized that Mrs. Koi Koi was not just a terrifying specter, but a soul lost to time, yearning for peace. With newfound empathy, Aisha stepped forward. "We will tell your story, Mrs. Koi Koi. We won't let your name be forgotten." But as the words left her lips, Mrs. Koi Koi's figure began to fade, her expression shifting from sorrow to relief. "Thank you, dear child. Perhaps my story can finally find its way into the light." Just then, the ground shook, and the walls of the school trembled. A flash of lightning illuminated the room, and in an instant, Mrs. Koi Koi vanished, leaving behind an empty silence and a lingering chill. The students rushed outside, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had witnessed. They promised to honor Mrs. Koi Koi's memory, but as the days turned into weeks, they realized the school would forever be a place of fear. Though they spoke her name, her story remained shrouded in darkness. Years later, long after the students had graduated, the school stood abandoned, its walls crumbling and overtaken by vines. And on stormy nights, if one listened closely, they could still hear the faint sound of clicking heels echoing through the empty halls, a haunting reminder of the teacher who once cared, forever searching for a truth that may never be found. And so, the legend of Mrs. Koi Koi lived on, a tragic tale of love, betrayal, and an undying quest for justice.